Hello, so right now we're gonna configure the packet tracer design activity for EtherChannel, and the end result is gonna look like this. We will be using this chart as a layout, and I will leave this chart in the description so you could have a reference to look at. Let's begin with putting in the layout, and then I'll leave this PKT file in the description as well so you could start out. Now we will begin the EtherChannel design activity, and we will start with putting the PCs. Put them at the bottom, and we'll build from the bottom up. Next we'll use the switches. These will be layer 2. Next will be the layer 3 switches, and we will have 2 of those. And then finally the router. Next is going to be a little tedious, but we'll do the PCs to the switches, and we'll be doing all the cables. Each PC to the layer 2 switch will be at fast Ethernet interface 6. Next, we're going to have the switches, and to connect to each other using the EtherChannel, from switch 0 to switch 1, we'll be using ports 3 to 5, and this will be EtherChannel 1. Next, in EtherChannel 2, from switch 1 to switch 2, we will have it as 10 through 12. From switch 2 to switch 0, that will be EtherChannel group 3, and we'll have that as 20 through 22. And next we will have the connection from each of these multilayer switches to each of the switch, and we will begin with FA01 to FA01. This multilayer switch 0 will each be on the interface 1 of all the layer 2 switches. This multilayer switch 1 will be connected to all the fast Ethernet 2. Next we will have 2 trunk ports between these switches, and they'll be 4 and 5. We're now going to add the module to the router, and first we have to power it off. So if it's on, then just power it off, and take the NIM ES2-4 and add it onto the router. Power it back on, minimize, and we're going to use from the multilayer switch fast interface 24 to the router, and we're going to give it the first interface as 1/0. And this do the same one, 24, now 1/1. That's it. I'll leave a template of this in the description below, and we will begin. Now we're going to begin with the PC configuration. We're going to start with giving each PC their IP address. So if you follow the chart, you will see 10.2 /24 subnet. So 192.168 den.254, press enter. Same thing for PC1. 72.16.18.2/16 subnet, and always and 254 for the default gateway. Enter. For PC2, it's going to be 10.10.2/8 subnet 254, press enter. We're done with that. Now onto the switches. On switch 0, we're first going to create VLAN 2. This VLAN 2 will be used for PC 0, and that is connected by interface 6. VLAN 2. I'll turn it on. Now we go into FAO6, switch port, mode, access, switch port, access, VLAN 2. And interface on switch 0, interface 1 and 2 will connect to the multilayer switch 0 and multilayer switch 1. So we need those as trunk ports, so we need to switch over to that in range FAO1-2, switch port, mode, trunk. You can check it by show int trunk, and we could see that FAO1 and 2 are connected via trunk ports, and that's how you check it. Now we're going to go to switch 1 and do the same thing, but instead we're going to have a VLAN 3 for PC1. VLAN 3 int VLAN 3, and then now go to the interface. Turn it on. Now do the 1 and 2 for trunk. Let's check it. See, 1 and 2 are also on trunk ports again, and we could check the other one by doing show VLAN or show VLAN brief. You can see VLAN 3 is connected via FAO6. Now do the same thing for switch 2. Enable T VLAN 4 for PC2. Int VLAN 4. And now int FAO6. Switch over to the interface. Switch port mode access. Switch port access VLAN 4. It's good. Now let's configure trunk ports for 1 and 2. Now let's check it. Show int trunk. See 1 and 2 on the trunk. Now show VLAN brief. Check that VLAN 4 is active via interface 6. Now that is done, we are going to now configure the ether channels between switch 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 and 2 to 0. Let's begin with switch 0. Oops. Or COM-T. And between switch 0 and 1, they're going to have the ether channel group 2, and it's going to be set the mode of active for LACP. So we have to switch over to these 3 interfaces, which is 3 through 5. So int range FAO 3-5. We're going to shut it down first, prevent errors, channel group 2 mode active. And we're going to do a no shutdown. We're going to do int port channel 2 to go into the configuration mode, put over to trunk mode trunk. Exit out. We do show ether channel summary to check it, and we could see that these two, or in group 2 we have the interfaces FA03 through 5. And the reason why it's down right now is because switch 1 has not been configured for the same group channel, and we'll do that later. But as of this moment, we're going to create, since we're already on switch 0, we're just going to create the EtherChannel group 4 between switch 0 and switch 2. And those are on interfaces 20 through 22. So let's do that right now. Big T int range FA 22. Shut it down, prevent errors. Channel group 4 mode active. We're doing no shutdown. Turn it back on. Now go into the interface port 4 support mode trunk, and that should be done. Let's check it again. Show EtherChannel summary. Both of them are on LACP. For group 4, it's 20 through 22, and they're both down because we haven't configured it on these switches yet. Now I'll show you one by one. This will go up after we configure in switch 1. Okay, so we're gonna create the EtherChannel summary or EtherChannel between switch 0 and switch 1, and that's on interfaces 3 through 5. Call T. Oops. 3-5. Now we shut it down. Channel group 2 mode active. This has to be 2 because to connect between the channel between 0 and switch 1 active. Now it's creating a port channel. Now turn it on. No shutdown. And int. Let's go to configuration mode, int port channel 2. Now switch port mode trunk, and this should be on. Fast forward a little bit and let's check it. Show EtherChannel summary. As you can see, it's up with 3 to 5 LACP. Switch 0, we're going to do the same thing, show the EtherChannel summary. For port channel 2, which is between right here, now we see now it's up, and same thing. Okay, now we're going to create the port channel 3 between switch 1 and switch 2, and that is on interface 10 through 12. Shut down. Channel group 3 mode active. No shut. Int port channel 3. Switch port mode trunk. And now we're going to check it again. We now have group 3 and is between 10 and 12. Now onto switch 2. First, we're going to finish creating port channel 3 between switch 1 and switch 2. So let's go do that. Yeah, okay. 12. Let's see. Now we shut it down. Channel group 3 mode active. No shutdown. Int port channel 3. Switch port mode trunk. Exit out. Show ether summary. And we see port channel 3 is up between switch 1 and switch 2. And if we go back to switch 1, if we do the show EtherChannel summary again, we see both of them are up because port channel 2 is up and configured, and port channel 3 is up and configured. Now lastly, we're going to do port channel 4 between switch 0 and switch 2. Port channel 4, you could see it is down at the moment. You could do a refresh and you see it's down, but after we configure it again on switch 2, it will go up. We just have to kind of keep the consistency. T int 20-22. That's between, these ports are between 0 and switch 2. I'm going to shut them down. Do channel group 3 or 4 mode active. No shut. No shutdown. Turn it back on. Int 4. Go into configuration mode and switch port mode trunk. Now it should be on, and let's fast forward a little bit and you could check it. Show EtherChannel summary up, LACP 2022, and now if we go back to switch 0 and check it again, it should be up as well. There we go. Now we're going to configure the IP addresses for the VLANs on switch 0, multilayer switch 0 and multilayer switch 1. We're going to be first start with giving all of the interfaces 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 the trunk ports. And let's start with that now. Enable T in range FAO 1-5 switch port or trunk encapsulation .1Q trunk or switch port mode trunk. Just turn it all on. Now we're gonna create the VLANs. So VLAN 2, VLAN 3, VLAN 4, VLAN 4. We're going to first go into the configuration mode for VLAN 2 and VLAN 2. Give it the IP address of 1, 2. Next, we're going to go to the configuration of VLAN 3 address or 118.254. VLAN 4. Go back to the regular state. Now we're gonna check for the IP int brief, check or int show IP int brief. Scroll all the way down. You can see VLAN 2 through 3 and 4, each with their IP address, and they're all up. Now on to multilayer switch 1. We're going to begin with trunk ports 1 through 5. Q, just in case. Switch port mode trunk. Change all of that. Now we're going to create the VLANs. 2, 3, 4. Go into the configuration for VLAN 2. And in multilayer switch 0, the default gateway or the IP or the VLANs IP address for .254 for multilayer switch 1, it's going to be .253. Now go to VLAN 3. And to VLAN 4. IP address. Three. Now we're going to check it by show IP and brief all the way down. Check that the IP address configuration was correct. Now we're going to test the configuration between PCO to multilayer switch 0, multilayer switch 1, PC1, and PC2. We're first going to go in here and test the configuration. Ping 192.168.10.254. See, that's working. Usually this wouldn't work in the first few tries, so you're just going to have to ping until they kind of just get it. 253. And just give it some time before it recognizes it. Now we're going to do PC2. 2. And then PC3. And we could do the same test on PC1. .192.168.10.2, that's ping PC0. And then PC2. We could ping the router or the default gateway. And that shows that it all works. Now we could configure HSRP on multilayer switch 0 and multilayer switch 1. We're going to be on multilayer switch 0, and we're going to configure HSRP. We're going to give them the priority of 150 on the switch, as to multilayer switch 1 they will have the priority of 100, which is the default. So first we're going to go into the VLAN of each one, 2, 3, and 4, and set the virtual gateway for the HSRP. Go to, and now call T int VLAN 2, and then go standby version 2 for HSRP, and then the next is standby 2. This will be group 2 for HSRP, IP 192.10.250. Now we will give standby group 2 priority of 150 and standby 2 preempt to get back to the regular default gateway if it ever goes back online. Press enter, and we'll basically be doing the same thing for VLAN 3 and 4. And let's go to the interface of VLAN 3. Int VLAN standby version 2 standby 3. This group 3 IP 172.16.18.250. Standby 3 priority 150. Standby 3 preempt. Now for VLAN 3, the HSRP virtual gateway is configured. We'll now do that for number 4. Int VLAN version 2, standby group 4, IP 10.100.250. Standby for priority 150. Standby for preempt. And to finally check that, we will go back to this mode and do show standby version. Or show standby brief, I meant. And you can see right now, you see VLAN 2, 3, and 4, each with their groups that we configured, with given the priority. All of these will be in the active state. As to when we configure multilayer switch 1, when we give them the default priority of 100, it will be in the standby state. And you can see the virtual IP. Now, we will go to multilayer switch 1. Basically do the same thing, but instead of those 4 steps, first giving the standby version 2, then give the IP address and priority and then the preempt, we just need to do the standby version 2 and then standby the group number in the virtual HSRP gateway. So now we go conft int VLAN 2 to go into that mode. And after this, we only need 2 steps. As I said before, standby version 2 and then standby group 2 with the IP of the virtual gateway 92.110.250. And that's pretty much all you need for configuration for the standby gateway. Now we do the same for VLAN 3, standby version 2, and standby, oops, what happened here? Standby 2, or standby 3 of the IP 172.16.18.250. Enter int VLAN 4, standby version 2, standby group 4, and IP 10.100.250. Now, since multilayer switch 1, we didn't configure a priority number for it, so the default automatically goes to 100. As to over here, we set as 150. So this one will be the active virtual gateway, and this one will be the standby. And we can check this by doing show standby brief. Oops. As you can see, standby right here is in the state, and you can see the virtual IP address. If you go over here, it will show it being the active. Now we're going to test the ping to the virtual gateways. We're going to ping 192.168.10.250. You see that's working. PC1 ping. See that's working as well. I got PC2. Ping 10.10.100.250. See that working as well too, and that seems good. Now we will be configuring HSRP for multilayer switch 0 and multilayer switch 1, and this will be communicating with the router. So we will have the IP address of 84.84.84.250 as the HSRP virtual gateway, and on FAO 24 this will be given the trunk port and a VLAN 10, which we can set as 84.84.84.85 as shown on the chart, and over here will be same VLAN 10 and it will be 84.84.84.86. Let's begin with configuring over here. Conf t int VLAN 10, VLAN 10. Go back to configuration mode, IP address 84.84.84.85. Exit out. Now we have to control the interface FAO24 to be a trunk port. So int FAO24 switch port trunk encapsulation .1Q switch port mode trunk. We'll turn that on, and in the meantime we will check the show int trunk. You can see 24 has been added to the trunk port. And now let's check the VLANs. Show int or IP int brief. You see VLAN 10 with this IP address of the 85. Now we will be configuring the same thing over here. We haven't done HSRP, the virtual gateway, yet. We'll do that after this. Do int or t VLAN 10 int VLAN 10, turn it on. Give the IP address of 84.84.6. Exit. Turn on 24 for a trunk port. Mode trunk port trunk encapsulation .1Q switch port mode trunk. Turn that on, and let's check it. So int trunk, you see 24 has been added to the trunk ports. Now do show IP and brief. You see that VLAN 10 has been assigned the 86 address. Now we will configure HSRP, and we will give them the virtual gateway of 84.84.84.250, and as usual, Multilayer switch 0 will be the active router, as Multilayer switch 1 will be the standby. So we go back to VLAN 10, and we do standby version 2, and then we'll give them the HSRP group of 10. So standby or standby 10 IP 84.84. Forgot the D. And standby 10 priority 150. Standby 10 preempt to give it back to the router. And Multilayer switch 0 should be finished configuring, so show standby brief. This was the command, show standby brief, and you can see that 10 is the active one, and we don't know the standby yet, so we have to configure that in Multilayer switch 1. So now we go conf t and VLAN 10 version 2 standby 10 IP 84.84.84.250. And we don't need to set the priority because that's default by 100. And now all we need to do is check show standby brief. You can see 10 is on listening mode, or it should be on standby, so we're gonna have to give it a little couple minutes for it to configure. So let's fast forward a little bit, and you can see now here the standby is this router. That was almost Multilayer switch 0. Now 1, do the command, and you can see now it's on standby. Now we will be configuring the VLAN 10 on the router, and we will be giving this VLAN 10 the IP address 84, 84, 84, and 84. After that, we have to configure the static routes to route directly to the HSRP virtual gateway of multilayer switch 0 and 1, which was 84, 84, 84, 250. Now let's begin with creating VLAN 10 on the router. On this particular router, it's a little confusing to create the VLAN, so we have to go to the VLAN database, which is kind of outdated, but it works. And now we just do VLAN 10. Now we exit out of it, go to Conf T to initialize the VLAN, go in VLAN 10 and go to the configuration mode, IP address. That's done. And do show VLAN to show that the 10 is up and working. And now we do show IP and brief. See that the 10 is up as well. Now we have to assign this VLAN 10 to the interface GI 0/1/0, which is over here, and GI 0/1/1, which is from the router to the multilayer switch 1 over here. Now we do Conf T and range GI 0-1. We do the switch port trunk in caps or mode trunk. We'll switch them to the trunk and give them that. And now we kind of just wait until all of this goes up. Now we will configure Now we will configure the static routes. Conf T IP route 192.168. And anything that comes from this network, we will go and send it in the direction of the 250, which has been set to the HSRP protocol on multilayer switch 0 and multilayer switch 1. We'll do the same for the other networks. .16. Now we do the 10 network. Now, we'll do show IP route. You can see that the routes have been set. And that should conclude our demonstration of EtherChannel, and we went into a little bit more advanced topics of HSRP. Thank you for watching.